Morning. Everybody's good? Okay. Today I'm joined by lawmakers who are passionate advocates for individuals, protecting New Yorkers' homes, and individuals who have passed legislation that has empowered my office to bring this case. I want to recognize the Borough President of Queens, Donovan Richards, Senator Zelnor Myrie. We should be joined shortly with Senator Brian Kavanaugh, Senator John Liu, and Assembly Member Landon Dayes. It is no secret in New York City and all throughout the state of New York that we are experiencing a housing crisis. And as part of our housing problems, we are witnessing a disturbing rise in the number of housing scams, particularly scams such as deed theft, which target homeowners who are equity rich but cash poor, and homeowners who are vulnerable, particularly in communities that are rapidly gentrifying. Deed theft is heartless. It is a merciless crime, and it steals individuals' homes without their knowledge. And for many Americans, home ownership represents the pinnacle by my office and co-authored by State Senator Zelnor Myrie and Assembly Member Landon Dayes, and with the support of Senator Kavanaugh, who is the chair of the Housing Committee in the State Senate, and all of the individuals who are with me here today. Earlier this week, my office charged 2 thieves who collaborated to rob a Queens woman of her home. Our office found that Deepa Roy and Victor Quimis worked together to manipulate Renuka Berwani, a vulnerable resident of Kew Gardens Hills who has been receiving end-of-life hospice care. Mrs. Berwani purchased her home on 78th Road in 1986 with her husband, Mohan. But sadly, in 2022, her husband, Mohan, passed away. And Mrs. Berwani passed away this past June. But amid her illness and her grief, these criminals, these fraudsters, sought to scam Mrs. Berwani out of her home. In fact, Roy began visiting Mrs. Berwani, claiming to be a friend of hers. And in October 2024, Roy and Quimis allegedly forged a deed with Mrs. Berwani's signature, transferring ownership of her home to themselves for free. The deed was notarized with a forged signature from a Nassau County notary, and they later forged additional documents transferring ownership of the home to an LLC, allowing Victor Quimis to take out a $552,000 mortgage on the property. After paying off the mortgage, Mr. Quimis stole over $300,000 that was remaining. And this is a prime example of deed theft. Earlier this week, my office arrested Victor Quimis and charged him with multiple felonies for his role in the scheme. And Deepa Roy remains at large, and there is a warrant out for his arrest. And we expect that she will be apprehended and arraigned soon. The deed theft legislation that my office worked to pass through the legislature basically establishes deed theft as a crime and gives my office jurisdiction to prosecute it. And a similar law passed recently which will allow us to return the home to the Berwani family after we convict Deepa Roy and Victor Quimis. I want to be sure that every New Yorker is aware of the resources my office has now under its jurisdiction to fight this horrific crime. The Office of the Attorney General runs a special deed theft tip line where New Yorkers can file complaints and email deedtheft@ag.ny.gov. Again, that's deedtheft@ag.ny.gov to get help if they think they've been a victim. We have also established a homeowner protection program, otherwise known as HOP, which is a network of free legal organizations where they give advice, including individuals who are facing deed theft. My office regularly holds deed theft education and prevention workshops in communities all throughout the state. I personally, along with over 200 volunteers, we've canvassed parts of Brooklyn, again, educating homeowners about deed theft. And my office will always stand up for vulnerable individuals who are targeted by deed thieves so that family homes can stay in the family. To share more about this case, I want all of you to now hear from Mrs. Barwani's son, Kamal, to share a few words.
Thank you, Attorney General James. Good morning, and thank you all for being here on the steps of the Queens County Criminal Courthouse. I'm Kamal Barwani, and I'm honored to stand alongside Attorney General Letitia James as we announce the Attorney General's first indictment, or indictments, and one arrest under New York's strengthened elder deed fraud law. My mother, Renuka Barwani, was 88 years old, and as Attorney General James said, was in hospice care and completely bedridden with around-the-clock aids. She could not even turn in bed or feed herself or hold a pen. Yet while she lay helpless, two individuals, Deepa Roy and Victor Quimis, conspired to steal her home, a home that she rightfully owned and maintained for decades. We learned of this brazen scheme by sheer accident when a letter from the New York City Department of Environmental Protection came in the mail, arrived and addressed to Victor Quimis, welcoming him to his new home. Further investigation revealed two forged deeds filed with the New York City Registrar's Office and a fraudulent home equity loan that was taken out by these two individuals. The notary's signature on these deeds was forged, and the signature purported to be my mother's signature was also forged. This case makes the first use by the New York State Attorney General of the new law, which raises the severity of the offense and increases penalties for those who prey on our most vulnerable. Attorney General James fought tirelessly to pass this legislation, and today we see its power in delivering justice for victims of elder exploitation. My mother passed away in June of this year. Losing a mother to failing health is devastating enough. Trying to protect her home from fraudsters during this time has made that pain and sadness far more difficult to bear. I want to commend the outstanding investigators and prosecutors of the New York State Attorney General's Office for their meticulous work. This has been a fast investigation, just in a few months. Special thanks go to Attorney General Letitia James for her leadership, to Gerard Murphy, Bureau Chief, and to Nazi Mudiri, Assistant Attorney General, for their collaboration and unwavering support throughout this investigation. Let these arrests serve as a warning. Anyone who targets our seniors will be held accountable. We will not allow criminals. Sound familiar? Yeah. We will not allow criminals to exploit age, illness, or infirmity for personal gain. New York stands united in protecting the dignity, rights, and property of every elder citizen. We look forward to continue working with the Attorney General's Office to ensure that this illegal and fraudulent transfer is reversed. In my mother's memory, and for every family who fears this kind of cowardly abuse, we pledge to continue the fight. Together we will turn outrage into action, pain into justice, and ensure that respect for our elders is enshrined in law and upheld in every New York community. Thank you.
Now we'd like to hear from the Borough President of Queens, Borough President Donovan Richards.
Well, let's start off thanking Tish James for all the work that she's done on this. This has been a long journey, and you've been just a fierce advocate across the board for our most vulnerable. Of course, to all of the elected officials, our state partners who this would not be possible without, thank you for your leadership. Now, I was born and raised in Southeast Queens, so I've seen firsthand how our neighbors have fell victim to these deed fraud crimes. And make no mistake that this issue disproportionately impacts black and brown communities. And it's what we've always known it to be, a crime, even if it technically wasn't against the law until last year. It's a crime that predominantly, once again, impacts communities of color, like the ones I've called home my whole life. So it's no surprise that we've seen more than 1,000 deed theft complaints in Queens alone over the last decade. And make no mistake, once again, that those thousands of crimes, and those are just the ones we know, are ones that have disproportionately impacted our community. This scourge must stop. And because of the leadership of the individuals behind me, we now have the legal and prosecutorial tools to crack down. I know that this is a plague that Attorney General James feels strongly about, and as we can see with the legal action she's taking today, we're sending a strong message to all the grifters out there that we're not messing around. If you steal from our elders or the less fortunate amongst us, we're going to come after you. So let today be just the first example of justice being served when it comes to deed theft. And I will think about all of those who've lost their wealth, which is in a lot of our homes today, who did not see this justice, but today is the beginning of a long journey. Thank you, State Attorney General Tish James.
This property is located in Kew Gardens, and the senator who represents that district is Senator John Liu. John Liu?
Thank you, Madam General. Good morning, everyone. First, let me welcome Assemblymember Deus to the Queens, and also to give a full thanks to our housing chair in the state Senate, Brian Kavanaugh, who has been leaving no stone unturned to increase the housing supply here in New York. And also great thanks to Senator Zelnor Myrie, who for a long time incessantly and unrelentingly has been sounding alarm on the problem of deed theft here in the city of New York and beyond in New York State. This is his legislation that has finally empowered our Attorney General to go after these criminals. You know, Mrs. Barani was a constituent of mine, and she immigrated here, raised her family, worked hard, and bought a home decades ago, almost 40 years ago. She bought this home. She in many ways pursued and indeed achieved the American dream. But these despicable individuals turned it into an absolute nightmare, where she was completely helpless, sick, bedridden, and these individuals had the audacity to attempt to steal her home, her life savings, out from right under her nose. This is absolutely horrific. And now that we have the legal means, the laws in place to do so, I'm so grateful to Attorney General Letitia James and her entire office for pursuing this. This is the first case. Unfortunately, it's going to be the first of many cases. But this first case and today's announcement sends a very strong message that no one is to try to steal anybody else's property, certainly not their homes, and if they even attempt to do so, they will be met with the full force of the law. Thank you, Madam General, for your efforts.
Thank you. The sponsor of the legislation who shepherded it through the New York State Senate, Senator Zelnor Myrie.
Thank you, Madam General. There are few things that are more precious to a New Yorker than their home. People work their entire lives. It is often the culmination of a dream, of hard work. And for far too many New Yorkers, all of that work has been stolen from them in a moment. And in 2019, 6 years ago, the Attorney General and I went door to door in central Brooklyn, warning New Yorkers of these schemes and these frauds to steal their generational wealth, to steal everything that they have worked for. Then in partnership with the chair of our housing committee, Senator Kavanaugh, we held hearings where we heard from victims. We heard tragedies of stolen generational wealth. And then in conjunction with Assemblymember Deus, Senator Lieu, we passed legislation to finally make this a crime. And we did all of that work for one simple reason. If the law does not work for working people, it does not work at all. We have a responsibility to stand up for vulnerable New Yorkers. And that is exactly what the Attorney General is doing today. I am proud to stand with her and to stand with my colleagues, to send a warning to anyone that wants to scheme or defraud vulnerable New Yorkers. You may have been able to get away with it in the past, but your time is up.
The individual who sponsored it through the State Assembly, Assemblymember Landon Deus.
Good morning. Thank you, Attorney General James, as always. Senator Myrie, thank you for being my partner on this legislation. I am Assemblymember Landon Deus of the 77th District from the Bronx. Ms. Barani left her home country many years ago during partition, had to leave everything behind. And then she immigrated to our great country in 1975. She lived with her husband the American dream, which is buying a home. Something that is becoming tougher and harder for everyday New Yorkers. As the senator just said, if something doesn't work for the working class, then it doesn't work at all. My mom is from Brooklyn. My dad and my parents currently own a home in Harlem. I own my home in the Bronx. My mom is a 3-time breast cancer survivor. I can't imagine a scammer, a schemer, taking away the equity that my mom built while she is laying there trying to fight this cancer, or in this case, a woman that was on her deathbed. Do you understand what type of deprived individual you have to be to take advantage of someone in their final days? You have no morals. You have no guide that lets you be a decent person. And when the Attorney General came to the state legislature and said, we need this legislation, we acted. I want to thank Speaker Carl Hastie, who allowed a freshman assembly member, granted I am an attorney, to be the lead on this in the assembly. That took a lot of faith to allow for a very important legislation to happen. But at the end of the day, the Attorney General, Senator Myrie, the Senate, the New York State Senate, and the State Assembly saw what people were going through. We heard the victims' voices. And most importantly, we fought for the people of New York to take action. We have to make sure this doesn't happen to any more families. Imagine you worked all your life to have that nest egg, to have your castle, and someone takes it away from you with a sleight of a pen, just because they wanted to have a couple $100,000 and didn't work a day in their life for that. This bill, with the leadership from Attorney General James, is going to change the future of housing in New York, which is currently in an affordability crisis, but most importantly is showing, is demonstrating that New York State is fighting for the working class. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have an affordability crisis here in the city of New York, a housing crisis, and the individual who has shepherded more legislation during his time in the New York State Senate obviously has been a champion. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Brian Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much. This is quite a lineup to back clean up on. But I want to join everybody in thanking the Attorney General, who really has been working on these issues, on housing issues, on protecting homeowners and renters, and on bringing justice to New Yorkers, not just in this role, but for so many years as the public advocate and now the Attorney General. So I also want to thank the members of the press who are here. You know, a few years back, the press played a critical role in making it clear just how pervasive and how problematic some of these deed theft cases were. We saw more and more of these harrowing stories, so I want to thank people for bringing that to the attention of the world, and I thank you for what you're doing today. Helping to get the message out that this activity will not be tolerated in New York, that you will go to jail if you steal somebody's deed. Now, what we're talking about today is really government working as it should. There was a problem identified. My colleague Zellner Myrie and the Attorney General and the Assembly member and John Lieu, I want to thank him for stamping our passports to get out to Queens today, and the borough president, of course. But, you know, we had hearings. We identified the problem. And we did two things. we passed the criminal statutes that we're talking about today, and we also importantly passed civil statutes that allow various parties to intervene before the deed changes hands improperly. So that should diminish people's ability to commit this crime in the first place. But at the end of the day, a crime like this, where people are willing to forge the documents, take advantage of somebody who can't defend themselves, and proceed to take possession and take possession of the deed, the only answer to that is to prosecute aggressively and thoroughly. And so again, I thank the Attorney General and her team for doing that today. I also just want to thank the family for, it's a terribly tragic time, but thank Mr. Birani and the whole family for working with the authorities and bringing this case forward and, getting justice. Thank you very much.
I also want to thank our real estate enforcement unit, Rod Murphy, Kieran Meir, Nicholas Vasitis, and Michael Barbosa from our Brooklyn regional office. We are also dealing with another case in Harlem where the rightful homeowner we discovered was living in a shelter, and an individual stole a brownstone in Harlem that was worth millions. And that homeowner, the rightful homeowner, was living in a New York City shelter, living in poverty. And we were able to get justice for that individual as well. Now we will take on-topic questions.
Yeah, my wife and I would visit my mother often, and we were there on a weekend in December, right before Christmas, and there was a letter from the DEP because the ownership had changed. The registration papers in the city registrar's office were filed in November, and the purported forged deed was done in October. So it was very quick. There was no foreclosure notice because there was no time, right? So there was never any other indication, because they had changed the billing address for all of the property's bills to a different address. We had no idea anything was happening. It was just by chance the DEP happened to send it to that address.
We don't know. That's part of our investigation, which is ongoing. Any? So in this particular case, the individuals are facing the possibility of from 8 to 25 years in jail. The charges are as follows. They include grand larceny, residential mortgage fraud, money laundering, criminal possession of a forged instrument, and a scheme to defraud. 8 to 25 years. And we are confident that we will be able to arrest the individual who is on the run. So when this became a crisis, particularly in gentrifying communities, where individuals are cash poor and equity rich, and individuals were taking advantage of vulnerable populations. In addition, I must say that the City Council, with regards to their lien sale, that also elevated and increased the number of individuals who are preying upon vulnerable populations. As a result of that, more elected officials, both in the City Council, the state legislature, as well as in the Office of Public Advocate and the Attorney General, we became more and more aware of it as more complaints came to our respective offices. So we worked with the Department of Finance, we worked with DEP, we worked with a number of agencies to address this issue, and it ultimately resulted in this legislation, which allows my office to prosecute individuals for the crime of deed theft. Well, this legislation, again, thanks to my colleagues in the legislature who you just heard from, allows us to return the property to the homeowner, the rightful homeowner, after a conviction. And most importantly, individuals who are in the property, if in fact they are facing an eviction, we can stay that eviction so that they can remain in place. And so again, I'd really want to thank my colleagues behind me. They really came to the rescue of countless number of New Yorkers, and particularly vulnerable New Yorkers who have been victims of deed theft. and we are working with the City Council to strengthen and improve the lien sale process. Sorry. Go ahead. So this is a new law that allows the Office of the Attorney General to have jurisdiction over deed theft cases. In the past, we have investigated a number of cases, and we referred them to the various district attorneys all throughout the state of New York to take action. But this is the first case that we have prosecuted under the jurisdiction of the Office of the Attorney General. I don't believe they knew the victim. They presented themselves as a friend of this young lady, of the woman. But in fact, they had no relationship at all. Do you know any other?
She would visit my mother.
Go ahead.
There were two individuals here, Deepa and Victor. Deepa, some time ago, became friendly with my mother, but we don't know how. Because when you have an older parent and someone visits them, you let them, you want them to be happy and have company. So we never suspected some new friend that she met somewhere or somehow would ever do something like this. So there was some type of a associate relationship. I wouldn't say they were friends, but she was an acquaintance of my mother's. Victor, she never met in her life.
So we're still investigating it, so I can't give you particular facts. But when we secure a indictment in regards to that case, we'll hold another press conference. Queensborough president? Yeah. I can tell you about Brooklyn. In Brooklyn, we focused on Central Brooklyn, East Flatbush, Canarsie. Those are the communities where we have received a significant number of complaints, and I'll leave the Queensborough to the Queensborough president.
We're going to get her to move to Queens soon one of these days. Predominantly, just as predatory lending hit Southeast Queens hard, I would say the areas of Cambria Heights, Laurelton, Rosedale, Springfield Gardens, Cambria Heights, I think I said St. Albans. Those are the areas you'll find majority. Very senior-heavy communities. Also, predominantly a lot of city workers who are retired. So these communities are always the ones who are preyed on the most. Predominantly black and brown. Absolutely.
Now from the Bronx and Harlem.
I have a couple connections, but this really meant something to me because of where I'm from and where my family's from. My dad's originally from Hempstead. I lived in Mount Vernon also. So the northeast Bronx around Carl-Hastings district, heavy amount. Central Harlem, where I'm originally from, I'm glad that we're fighting this case. The fact that a homeowner is in a shelter is just despicable, right? And as someone who's I don't know about you, but my parents are getting older. My parents own in Harlem, and I saw some action, right? They get phone calls, and they're trying to get information. They send spam emails to get social security number, bank account information. They are targeting our seniors. They're targeting our immigrant families because maybe their fluency in English is a little bit lacking, and they don't quite sure, right? Especially older people, especially they just want to follow the law. Oh no, like I have a lien on my house. I need to take care of this, right? I had a friend just call me the other day and someone called me and said I got a lien and I need to fill out this information or they're going to put a lien on my home. They're specifically targeting our vulnerable population, and that's why the Attorney General jumped in that action. When we allow people to target our most vulnerable, then we're not doing our job, and that's why I got behind here. That's why Senator Myrie got behind here, and that's why everyone's standing on these steps, because we won't let this happen again, and thank you to the Attorney General for handling that.
We also have received complaints from individuals in Buffalo, in Syracuse, and even in upstate New York. We are also seeing affinity groups where individuals show up and say, they remind them of their daughter or their son, and they prey upon these individuals. And they basically ask them to sign documents indicating that they're going to assist them, when in fact the document that they're signing is basically a deed. I thank you all for... Oh.
we're seeing examples. I'm an attorney also. We've seen examples in all forms. With the event of artificial intelligence, for example, my father got a phone call and the voice sounded like my nephew. And it's like, hey, granddad, I'm in trouble, right? So imagine you know, someone has Alzheimer's, someone has some cognitive decline. It's so easy to fool someone in this situation, or making it sound like the Attorney General's office or the DA's office is calling them for information. So their ability to use technology, video, alteration of sound, emails that look like coming from my office or a legitimate city or state source. They're using technology, but at the end of the day, it still takes some old-fashioned scamming where someone using personal relationships, getting to know someone, and they're looking at churches, senior homes. So, you know, these people use all forms to utilize this.
Thank you all for coming.
I just had one thing. Sorry, just one thing. The Attorney General mentioned it, but there is a hotline that the Attorney General's office runs for the HOP network. We have doubled the funding for that kind of assistance to $40 million a year, and the number is 1-855-HOME-456. So anyone who's experiencing distress or someone is reaching out to them in a way that's questionable, they can get legal assistance to assess what's going on and maybe prevent themselves from becoming a victim. Thank you.